Today we're finger knitting a beautiful Bolero Shrug with a loop yarn. Welcome to GoodKnit Kisses. We're all about helping you stitch your love and love your stitches. I'm so excited to bring you this finger knitting pattern. This is working with a loops yarn, and it's really nice, so you don't have to have just the 4 fingers on your hand. You can go from very small to very wide. Today we're going to make a shrug to go around your shoulders. It goes from elbow to elbow and around your back, and we're going to make it in the medium size. And on the pattern on our website, you can see the other size available and how to make changes. You are going to be working with 3 to 4 balls of yarn for the medium size. Go ahead and get 4 just to be safe. You're also going to need scissors and a tapestry needle and a stitch marker, and we're going to be working on this Bolero. It's going to go from a ribbing to a stockinette and back to a ribbing again. I'm going to show you everything you need to know in this video right here. So go to the blog to get your pattern, and we'll see you in a moment. All right, let's jump right into the pattern. We've got our materials and the abbreviations telling you how to do some of those basic stitches. And then we get into our sizes. I'm going to go over the medium or large size, and it's going to fit like a short sleeve sweater. And then I've got notes in here for sizing or lengthening, so you'll want to take a look at those pattern notes. All right, so we jump right into the instructions, and there's basically items 1 through 17, and I'm going to draw your attention very quickly to the last one at 17. And what we're doing is it's a finishing part, because at the end, when we finish, you're actually going to have this nice chained edge on the first or the second armhole. But the first armhole, which is where we cast on, has this edge. And I need you to know that I'm going to show you how to make that match this one here. And so in order to do that and get your color change correct, so on this one, see how it goes from dark to light and then back to dark again. In order to do that, you need to cut these recommended loops out first and set that aside. So I'm just jumping ahead so you see that, and I'll show you me cutting it and setting that aside, and we'll be using that later. All right, you're going to want to take the wrapper off, and so you're just going to be winding it from the outside of the ball and find your end. And this is where we're jumping to instruction 17 just for a moment and count out how many loops I tell you. So the first number there is 34, and that is for the medium size. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this. I'm cutting right after that loop, this little thread here. Okay. And so I'm going to set this part aside and take out my little stitch marker because I don't need that. All right, so now I can begin with my medium. We're going to step 1 on the instructions, and we're going to open up 7 loops. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And then I'm going to go in between the 7th loop, this little thread here, and snip it. And then all these other ones, we're going to go ahead and snip it as well. So we're opening up a yarn tail. Now normally I wouldn't make it so normally I wouldn't make this so long of a tail, but this is going to be used for sewing, and I'm cutting it now so I don't accidentally use these loops for something else in my project. All right, we're on step 2. We're going to count out 31 stitches or 31 loops, or 35 or 37 depending upon the size you're working on. So I'm just going to count out 9 here just for my small sample, and you're just going to put a stitch marker on the very last one. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm going to put my marker at the bottom of this loop here. It's just going to get it out of the way, and you'll see why in a moment. Make sure and lay your loops nice and flat for this first line here. And if you want to work left to right or right to left, that's fine. You're just going to make sure that you're counting, that you're bending this yarn to the back and working where it's always on the front side, so you're not turning your work. Be sure and pause your video as you need, of course. All right, so once you've got those counted and laid out, go ahead and bend this. And we're going to stick this loop, we're going to call that the working loop that's coming from the ball. We're going to put the working loop through our first loop that has a stitch marker. And you're just going to pull it up through that loop there and it makes a little V-stitch. You'll be able to see these very clearly later. So we want to move on to the next one, which is a purl stitch. Okay, so we just put our working loop in front of this stitch here, our next loop, and push that loop to the back. All right, and it makes this little purl bump here. Okay, so we're going to repeat that process all the way across. We're going to put the yarn at the back, the working loop, and pull it up and through the loop on the front. It makes a knit. Then put it in front of the next loop and push the working loop to the back, and you've got a purl stitch. So we're going to be alternating knit, purl, and it makes this ribbing that makes it a little bit stretchy arm area. All right, so keep doing the same thing, pulling those loops all the way through. Pause your video and meet me back at the end of your first row. See you in a moment. We are actually at step 8 on our pattern. We've completed this row, and now we just need to move on to the next one. You're just going to bend the yarn and go the opposite direction and grab the next loop and make sure and go up through that first loop just the same as you did before, when you grab it from the back and pull it on through, and then make this next yarn go in front of that loop where we did the purl stitch before, and we're going to do it again. So you're going to knit those knits and purl the purls. So once you see that pattern, it's actually easier because it's established for you, especially after you get past this first 2 rows. So you're going to continue until you have 15 of these rows. The easiest way to count them is by the purl bumps. You'll count that you've got 1, 2, and then so on and so on. So continue working back and forth until you have 15 rows, and I'll see you at step number 9 for the stockinette. See you soon. All right, so you've completed your rib section. You should have 15 rows. You can count up on the purls, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And now we're going to make the stockinette section, which is just knits the whole way. So you're just going to work your working loops back this way and put them through all the way across. And we're not purling anymore until the other side. So this is going to be the first armhole on this end. And then we work our stockinette until we reach the ribbing section at the other end. And we just repeat those 15 rows of ribbing. So I'm just going to show you what this row looks like. And then the next step is we are going to, oops, I purled that. See, I'm not paying attention. In fact, I can pop that stitch out and just fix it without undoing that one. So I'm going to show you how to change color or change the yarn or add new yarn, because you're going to need to do that 2 more times at least in this project, unless you make it even longer. And if you want to change colors and make the arms different than the main body, this row that you're first starting here is where you can do that. So if you will pause your video and meet me back at where I'm adding the yarn, I'll show you how to do that. And then I'm going to show you how to back up and fix some stitches to be knit or purl, so that you know how to fix some mistakes if you need to, and then we will bind off. All right, so continue working along, and I'll see you in a moment. All right, so you can see where we've got our ribbing, and then our stockinette is actually kind of widening out just a little bit because the ribbing wants to pull in a little bit to make it a little stretchy. So I'm at the end of where my yarn is. Obviously, this is just a sample, and I've got this last loop here, and we need to connect it. So if you want to change colors, you'll want to do this at the end of a row. So just pull these stitches out and frog back until you get to the beginning of a row. And we're going to bring in our new yarn. And I like to go ahead and just pop out 2 stitches on the end, and we're going to place the new loops, working loops, on top of those or behind them. So where the first loop is, I'm going to put it behind this solid one that doesn't have anything cut. I'm going to put it behind there. And this next one, I'm going to actually put it in front of this one that's our last stitch. And then that way my little cut pieces fall in the back. So these 2 loops are going to be held as one and go up through our next working loop, and it can be done in either direction, just wherever you find that you ran out of yarn. All right, so we're just taking these 2 loops. I just did it here. If you saw me, I'm going to take these 2 loops and put them up through this loop here on my project, and then keep going to the next one and finish out that row, and then you just start working in the opposite direction again, and I'll show you how that works up. And it looks very nice, especially when you get the whole project done. It's really not that noticeable. You kind of forget. I had to study on the back of my sample, and I saw that it just wasn't easily seen unless you look at it from the back. All right, so this is where the change happened, was right about right here. And as you get them all working up, you're not going to be able to notice. So we're going to work stockinette for the next 35 rows for the medium to large. And then the XL or 1X, you're going to work 37 rows or 39 rows for the largest 3X size. All right, so we've changed that yarn out, and then we will start working on our ribbing section next. You don't need me for that because you've already seen that, but I do want to show you how to change a stitch. So let's say we're in our ribbing section, and maybe I decide that this one should have our, yeah, let's see, let's go down and make all these ribbings down here. And you said, oh, I went too far. We can go ahead and pull that stitch out, but you can leave these stitches to the side like they are, and then pull these out. Okay, see how I pulled these last few stitches out? All right, so pull all these little loops out. Now, remember our front thing where we put the yarn in front of the loop that we want to make it purled, and we just push it through? All right, and then it makes that a purl stitch. Same thing. This yarn back here needs to be in front, and then we just push it on through and make a purl stitch, and then switch it and then push it through. So that's how you would make a change if you needed to. And now you know how to do it. So continue on your stockinette, then you're going to finish up 15 rows of the ribbing section, and I'll meet you back up to bind it off. See you soon. All right, so we finished our ribbing section, and now we want to do the same as we did in the beginning and cutting off a tail. So we're going to count out 7 loops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And we're going to cut that and then open all those loops, and we're going to be using this as our tail, and this is again for sewing, and that's for the second armhole. And then we're going to go to the opposite side as our tail and go through this first loop and pull through the second loop. Okay, and then go on to the third loop and pull that through where we have that second loop. And as you go, you see that it makes this little chain stitch here. So just keep pulling through all the loops. Be sure not to miss one. And then when you get to the end, we're going to pull through that tail. So pause your video as you need, and meet me back up, and I will show you how to sew in the armhole, and then we'll finish off the first armhole to make it look like this nice edge here, because you see that this edge is not the same. All right, so you're going to, if you paused your video and came back now, you're going to pull this tail on through like this. Okay. And now this is ready to use for sewing. You're going to want to get your wide-eyed tapestry needle out for this and turn it over. I've got the wrong side up, and then we're going to put our arm together and sew it together. I'm actually going to show you on my larger sample on the actual Bolero, and you'll see how this is done. All right, so we're going to attach this end here and make a armhole. So we're just bringing this end that already has the nice chain stitch on it, bring it together, and we're going to be working with these knit stitches that are on the very end here, and they're actually going to be pulled together and look like they are actually one knit stitch. So we need to connect here, and I'm going to go through the very bottom loop here. Let's see. This is the very edge. Yeah, right here. It's coming from the knit stitch end. Okay, We're going to go up through those 2 loops, and then we're going to go down through these 2 loops on the other side. Okay, and then now it's well attached. All right, so this is the part that takes a little bit of seeing here. So we want to appear through these V stitches. They're kind of facing this direction here. And we're going to go around this stitch here. So right in between. So this little bar in between. And pull up. And then we're going to cross over to the other side. So our working yarn is going across the top of it. And we're going to go into this bar here, which is basically where this round loop sits underneath this stitch here. So right in between, if you pull your stitches apart, you can see the head of that loop, and then put our needle underneath and go up. And that's really what we did on the other side. These first 2 stitches are a little harder to see, and then they get easier as they get away from this edge. So we're going to cross over to the other side and go up a row where this next stitch is. You can see this is the stitch that we're working with. We're going to go through that bar, which is really the end of that stitch. Pull it through, and then crisscross over to the other side and go through this stitch. Make sure to not split your yarn. Go through, cross to the other side, and go through. Be sure and hit that pause button or rewind. You can use your controls and slow it down if you need. And you're really just zigzagging across, and once you get it tightened up, it resembles that same knit stitch that's over next to it, and it'll have a little bit of a ridge on the inside. And so you're just going to keep going until you get to the end here and weave in your tails. I'll show you what this looks like right up at the very end, and we will do the other side to finish it off. You'll just sew up the other side first, and then we're going to work on this end. See you in a moment. All right, so I have sewn this up, and this is where the seam is on this one. And you can just don't pull it too tight, and if you did, you can kind of stretch it out like this by tugging on the end. And you can see I did a couple stitches longer than where my purl stitches stopped. And you can leave this part long before you tie in your tail. That way, once you do the other side and try it on, whoever you're giving it to or yourself, you can determine if you want to stitch it up a little bit more, depending on how long your sleeves fit on you, or you can leave it open this way because your arm will just slip right in that way. All right, so complete the other side, and then we'll finish off this trim here. All right, I finished stitching up the first armhole. Here is where we're going to use the original stitches that we cut off so that it would match our beginning. If you didn't do that in the beginning, this is step 17, so I did address that in the beginning of the video, but if you didn't do that, just go ahead and cut that off now or somewhere on a ball that matches the color that you're trying to go for. And we're going to cut the first 2 loops and the last 2 loops and make them open, because those are going to be tails that we use to weave in together. So 1, 2, repeat on the other side. Okay, and we're going to take this first loop and go in between where we have a purl row and our purl column and a knit column. This little part right here is called a ladder. It goes in between the stitches. So we're going to go up and through that part. Normally I wouldn't do that, but on this particular project, it works much better to work with this thin edge here. So we're going to pull that loop up, take the next working loop and go, you're going from behind it and up through. So here's where my purl column is, and here is where, this is actually my seam. I started right before my seam. So I'm going to go right along to this ladder here and pull a stitch up. And then the next one, come around. You may have to work a little harder during where this hard seam is. There. And then pull the next one up. Be sure you're not skipping any loops on this strand and go all the way around, and you'll have a bunch of these little loops. Now, once you get about 6 in, you might want to go ahead and start doing this part. So the way you start binding these off is you take the first loop and take the second loop through that. All right, and then you move on to the next one and take the next loop and move it through that. So up and over, just like you did on the bind off. Okay, and then it starts making this nice chain edge on here. So continue going all the way around. I'll meet you back up when you get to this spot here, because this is where the most critical part is to get it joined together. Pause your video and I'll see you soon. So I've got my last loop, and this is right before this knit stitch here, and I had started it on the other side of that knit stitch. So we want to close that gap so that this is pinned down. So how I do that is I'm going to grab one of these tails that's back here and work it up through. Now I don't want the one that's coming from this end. I want the one that's coming from this finishing end. So we're just going to take this and put it on our needle and come up right through this stitch. Okay, come up through here, and then we're going to go through that last loop. All right, and then we're going to pull it down and tack it in. So we're going to go around the outside of that loop and go back down through the same hole, and then that pulls it over and tucks that in, and then we can just turn it around and then start weaving in our tails. You could put a knot in here because it's so bulky. You could go ahead and knot that. Oops, splitting my yarn here. Just to be safe there, and I know it's not going to come undone. And then now I can go in and weave in my tail. If I whip around these stitches, the outside of these knit stitches in here, then my tail will get woven in very nicely. See that? It pulls right through, and it won't mess up how nice and stretchy these stitches are with the pearls. And so we're going to go around and back down through one of these stitches here. Okay, so that one's tucked in, and then we're just going to work on the other one. You're going to stitch up those ends so that you can still put it on without breaking where that yarn is right up here. You want to make sure that it's not going to be too tight on you or snug. Make sure and weave those ends back downward instead of keep continuing to come up. That way it's nice and stitched in. So go from one side all the way down to the other, like this side, and then work your way on the other side so that it doesn't pull apart. You can even knot it in if you need to, but make sure that it fits first and it's not too tight. I hope you enjoyed making your finger knit Bolero Shrug. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe if you'd like to join up to get free PDFs a day before we release them on video. Be sure and click the join button or that link down below in the description in order to get your access to VIPs with badges and everything like that. And you get to get giveaways from my stash every 3 months, but every month we have a live call with question and answer sessions just for VIP members. Thanks for joining us today, where we help you stitch your love and love your stitches. See you again soon.